All right, I want to record a video for you guys on the best way flat out to prime a LS engine. It doesn't matter if it's Gen 3, Gen 4, doesn't matter. So here we have a LY9 or LY6, I think they call it. It's a out of this truck right here, it's a 08 2500 HD, and it came with VVT, no DOD. But we've deleted the VVT. The center cam bearing walked out. Didn't spin in the bore, walked out. Got very lucky, got real low oil pressure, but we were able to save the block. We had to tear it completely down, take it to the machine shop. They checked the bores, they pressed the new bearings. We're now running an LQ9 Gen 3 cam in it, one of my leftover LQ9 cams. It's almost identical to the VVT cam specs minus the VVT. So just a more reliable setup. We're just getting rid of the VVT, no DOD obviously to begin with. It should be a pretty reliable setup from here on out. So you get a lot of issues with these engines, people saying low oil pressure. There's a couple things. There is actually a pressure relief valve in the oil pan that can go bad, and we replace that with a plug. Very rarely is it the oil pump. It can be the oil pump O-ring, but a lot of people will put an oil pump in, and when they do that, they put an O-ring in and it resolves some of their issues. We've talked about the O-ring being an issue in other videos before, where it will let air into the motor and then you'll get a collapsed lifter, think it's a bad lifter, but it's actually just the O-ring letting some air get into the oiling system. But anyway, that's not what we're covering today. Today we're priming this motor, and I want to show you with any new LS, it is by far, in my opinion, the best way to prime it. Instead of just cranking it and letting the, crank off the pump, and on an old Chevy small block, you can use a priming tool through the distributor in the back of the motor. You can't do that on this one because the motor physically has to turn the oil pump that's behind this front cover here. So here's the best way, in my opinion, to prime it. Now, there's a couple locations you can do it at, but right here is a plug that removes with a hex, and that is a passageway right into the main oil galley. In fact, right behind it is where the oil pump pushes out. And you can see this long line here that goes all the way back to here and then down and back up. This is your main oil galley. Back in between here is where you have your barbell with your two O-rings. If you have this out, that'll give you no oil pressure as well. That's a big problem some people have and they forget about it. So the barbell's got to be in place back here that is behind the rear cover, and that simply directs oil to go down through the oil filter assembly and back up and in. Otherwise, if you have the barbell out, it just goes and drops right out back into the pan, and big internal leak. So anyway, we open this up here. We need to make sure our motor's tight. We've got an oil filter on it. This particular model has cooling lines for the oil. So I've put on one of my turbo adapters and just plugged it. So this is, I don't have one of the regular ones. It comes on a 5.3, that would work fine too. Make sure you plug this up with a gasket, filter on. Another big thing people forget is putting in this up here. And I'm gonna leave it out just for a minute so I can get oil up to it. Once the oil comes up to it, I'll put it in. But anyway, so this is an AC flush gun that I've repurposed for putting oil into, or priming this. And this is a simple fitting that I've made up. You can prime it here, or you could also prime it through a hole like this if you had a turbo fitting. Any way to get it into the main oil galley, I'd go that way or this way. But anyway, we're gonna take this fitting here, we're gonna screw it right into this here, into our block. And again, this is simply gonna allow us to pressurize oil into the oiling system and make that work. So I'm gonna hit pause here for a minute and get this screwed in and tightened up, and we'll come back. Okay, we've got our oil line screwed in and hooked to my flush gun. That is full of a quart of fresh new oil. And we're gonna go ahead and push that into the motor. You wanna make sure this is very clean inside. You don't want any debris going in. Obviously the filter would probably catch it, but you just don't wanna deal with that if you don't have to. Now, we're just gonna crack it here just a little bit to get some oil flowing, because it's gonna have to fill the galleys, and we're gonna see it probably go off like a rocket right here. But I just wanna get it filled up. So here we're gonna crack it just a little bit. Turn it off. It's starting to fill. As soon as that gets up to the top, we're gonna plug it. We're gonna make a little bit of a mess, we know that. Crack a little more. So we're having to fill the oil filter and all the oil galleys right now. which we may not even get any out. Oh, there it comes right there. So we've got our oil spilling out. We're gonna plug it immediately here. So very light pressure at first. We've made a bit of a mess, but that's it. And now we're just gonna tighten that down. Okay, now we can let some pressure go. But watch what's happening here. I can hear the push rod's already leaking a little bit. I'm gonna put some pressure on it here. Just a little bit. We can hear things starting to, oil moving around in here. Nothing yet out of the push rod holes. But we're about out. We're totally about out of here. So that means we've lost almost a quart into the oiling circuit directly. So let's let that sit for a second and see if we got, I can hear it hissing in the motor, and we're gonna get some air in there because we can't, if we had like a gallon to prime with, we'd get it all in one shot. We're gonna get a little bit of air in the motor, but it's not the end of the world. And we can sure hear it hissing. It's trying. So this, we're gonna fill this up again, and we're gonna go ahead and, let's go ahead and, so I've got that shut off there. We're gonna go ahead and open this up. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and let this air out carefully. So I've taken the pressure off the motor now. I'm gonna go ahead and set this down. You guys can hopefully see what I'm doing here, but we're just gonna reload this now that the pressure's out of this. I got that on there good. So yes, we're gonna have a little bit of an air bubble in there. It's not a big deal. The key is we wanna get oil forced through the lifters, into the main bearings, up through the valve train. That's what we're doing here. And it's gonna ensure that there's oil sitting right on the back side of the pump. So it primes the pump for you. The pump will pull immediately as soon as you start. So we are dumping in. Sorry, it's all out of focus. We're filling this flush gun back up with another quart. It holds a little more in a quart, but and I, of course, went over the top. Well, it wouldn't be fun if we didn't make a mess, right? So that's what we're gonna do, is make a mess. Just trying to get some lubrication on the threads of this flush gun. That's my real intent there, of making a mess. So excuse me for 1 second while I grab a shop towel here and clean up my hands, and then we'll go back to priming. All right, we're back. Close our valve, let's add some air to it again. Now I realize not many people have flush guns, but you can improvise and find some way. Any way you can get pressure behind oil through this here is gonna prime it for you. And if not, if you build any of these engines, it's worth getting. This is about 60 bucks for this flush gun. So here we go again. I'm gonna grab, we're ready to go. Let's add some pressure here. Okay, we're forcing oil into the motor. We're hearing all kinds of noises through the push rod tubes. There's oil coming up right there on that. There's our first lifter. It's pumped up and pushing oil out, and we'll continue to watch. But that's a good sign. That means things are tight in the motor and it's forcing oil up. If you had a big leak like a cam bearing, like I had on this one, you would never get any oil up. It would just pee out there. So we're gonna add some, we don't have any over here yet. Okay, we ran out of oil in this. We forced a lot through. But I know it's starting to come up now. That's the good sign, because it's coming up through one lifter. Once you see it come up through one of the push rod tubes, you know you're getting where you want to be. And I'm actually okay to fire it at that point. If you want to, you can sit here with this flush gun, keep adding oil, and get each one of these things to bleed out. I don't feel that's necessary. I know that it's pushing up, the tolerances are tight enough. It's just sometimes lifters take a while to push through and clean out. So at this point, I'm comfortable. I've got enough oil in the motor and it's running through where I want to run through, and it's gonna work. Got a little bit of a leak coming down the back of the motor from when I spilt it. I do believe that's where it's at. I sure hope it's where it's from. Yeah, it's just from it spilling over the top and rolling down. But anyway, that's how you prime it, guys. And then obviously it's not going to be a perfect prime because you're going to take that out and there's going to be a little air behind it, or because I got to put my oil lines back on there. But I'm comfortable there's oil everywhere I want it to be for the most part to start. Hope that's helpful for you guys. And I do this on every of my LS builds, and instantly I have oil pressure as soon as I turn that key. Good luck.